Hello, game designers. Good evening. I knew that I would get a chance to send this stuff out to you today, so I'm really excited. It's going to look like I'm looking over here, but trust me, I know the camera's right here. I'm just going to be reading off some stuff because I want to make sure you get all of the info that you need for this interim assessment. So, I don't. We're not doing a full-fledged review, and mainly it's because we didn't meet a lot this first instructional cycle. There were like at least two times. There's one time where we had like a school holiday or something. There was two times where like I was having trouble getting into the OHS and we were having trouble syncing up. And that's a problem. Now that won't happen for the second semester, and that I'm excited about. Like for the second unit, we are going to be meeting and it's going to be awesome. So I'm really excited to get into the second instructional cycle. But first, before we can get there, you have to take the interim assessment for the first part. So I'm going to tell you what you should have studied and what you should be looking at before you jump into that interim assessment. So the first thing is feedback. Know what feedback is and where it can happen during gameplay. Okay, so what is feedback? Where it can happen? Like no limits on that, right? Where are all the different types of feedback that you can get from a game? Know the formal definitions of some of those words that you're pretty familiar with as gamers. For example, the word play. Remember, the word play seems like an easy thing to define, but there's a very formal definition in the gaming world. So make sure you know what's play and what isn't. Make sure you know the difference between cooperative and competitive gameplay. So if you're making a game with elements of cooperative gameplay and competitive gameplay, what are you changing up? Know who your players are. All right, so not just human players or characters, sprites, but artificial intelligence as well, and know what role they play in play, right, in your games. So know the difference between skill and chance. So there's a big kind of give and take in games between skill and chance. Some games have not zero chance. I'd say there's never really a game with zero chance, but there's a lot of games with zero skill. So know the difference between skill and chance and how to identify them in your video games. Now, randomness versus pseudo-randomness. Totally different, okay? Know the formal definitions of randomness and pseudo-randomness, all right? Remember, and this is just my one little hint I'm going to give you about this, all randomness in gaming is pseudo-randomness. There is no such thing as real randomness yet. Now, I'm not saying that we won't develop a computer some way down in the future that creates real randomness, but for now the only thing we can do as game designers is create randomness. Sorry, that's getting tough to say, so check that out. Make sure you know the definition of those. Remember words like strategy and mastery. So like, how are those two connected? Okay, so what is strategy? What are the characteristics of a strategy? And then how does that relate to like mastery? Okay, so there is no such thing as a true master of anything, I would argue, but you can get pretty close. And how do you get close? What is that? Know the aspects of gameplay and game mechanics. Okay, so what are game mechanics? What's the formal definition of what game mechanics are? What all does that word or that term encompass? Okay, know what resources are in a game. Okay, so that's a big one. Know the difference between something like a resource in a video game and a sprite. Okay, so what are the difference between these two objects that we use as game designers? So we talked about resources and we talked about sprites. Also, you need to know the limitations as a game designer. So what are those things that are limiting you? We had a whole lesson that we actually did get to meet on the limitations of gaming. So what are those things that annoy us as gamers? Things like hardware limitations, software limitations, clock speeds. What is the role of like GPUs and how did GPUs change the gaming industry? And then the last thing I would really look at is just like gaming platforms. How are gamers gaming and how is that changing over time? So, we used to play in arcades. Now more people are playing on the go. So how is that changing the gaming industry? If you know the things I just ranted about, you're going to do just fine. All right. So remember, the second cycle really picks up speed and we're going to have a lot more than 5 meeting sessions. So we'll have at least, I'm saying at least 10, if not more, because we're going to be putting out like double lessons. So let's knock out this first IA. Let's get, study all you need to. Check out all those terms I just went over. Watch this video as many times as you want. If you know those, you're going to do great. All right. So good luck, and I will see you very, very soon.